Hi guys, you may wonder what does he have over there? And it's very simple. It's a nice ventilator from Cooler Master. And it's loud. Yeah, it is. It's powerful though. Very, very powerful. However, you might wonder what it's doing on top of the case and not inside. Well, not only that, I'll show you right now. It's not only on top. It's also connected to another ventilator. And what I have got here is a Cooler Master Seidon 120M. And I have to admit, this is a wonderful all-in-one liquid cooling solution for your computer. If you can get away with it, and, I'll show you a bit like that. Here's the radiator. But if you can get away with it, it's wonderful. However, there are a couple of notes. And let me undo the cellophane tape. It's paper based like Scotch tape. And I'll show you a little bit more. Oh, where is the starting point of that? Well, let me unwrap it. Ah, there it goes. Let's just do it like this, and this is the stuff that doesn't really leave any glue. I like that. So, hey, what's that? This is a ventilator, and this looks like a ventilator, but I've removed the innards because I needed a spacer. And one of the things that's wrong with this setup, with the basic premise, is that, well, it's not a wrong thing per se, but the first note I have to make is the screws that come with the kit, the Seidon 120M, are too short for this application. As you can see here, there's a little bit of a dimple or depression in the metal case, and I'll remove the cooler in a moment. Let's decouple the ventilator first and move it somewhere safe. Now, this might be a long video, but it's interesting, so hang on. Now here you see the radiator. Let's go there again, here. And this is the innards, well, basically a frame. Let's just call it a frame. That one doesn't really work. Doing another one. And yet another one. And as you can see, it's loose almost right away. Because this, well, these screws don't, this is the only one that's going in far enough. Here. Yeah. And once again, working in a confined space, but I don't know if you can see this properly, but starting the screws, I'm getting one. So they go in like 2 millimeters before there is any thread to grab onto, and 4 or 5 millimeters in depth total, so that's proper. So the length of thread is correct if you can screw it in entirely. But with this case, and I'll show you that in a moment, and I'm guessing with most cases with a normal sized or height ventilator here, and let's use the one that's included in the kit, you get this in penetration depth. So that's not much. Now count towards limiting with with the thickness of the metal of the case, and this is not all that thick material because it's a light case, but if you've got a proper metal case, there's almost no thread to catch on these threads. So Cooler Master, provide longer screws please. And I understand you don't want people to penetrate the ribbing, but come on, this doesn't work. I mean, like I mounted this ventilator in another one, and after that the threads were useless because it only caught the first couple of thread turns. So that's not good. Now, to make things a bit worse, I have to be very careful because I'm returning this one, or at least going to talk to the shop about that. But as you can see, there's a dimple here. So, I mean, like, these are too short. Cooler Master, these are too short. Second problem, and I'm guessing this is with more than one fan. If I place the ventilator like this, so it's sucking up air, and yes, it's counterintuitive how these blades are, but it works like this, and it pulls down air. It works well enough, I guess. However, as you can see, there's a gap between, and let me do it like this. There's a gap between this edge and the leading edge of the blade, or of the fan blade, yeah. And you need that gap. On the other side, there is almost no gap. So basically, this ventilator is almost working like a blender if you put it like that. So, if I would have mounted it in side, like I guess you're supposed to. Okay, here we go. If I mounted it inside, like you're supposed to, you can see there's a gap here. I'm not going to, it's still attached to the CPU, so I'm going to be very careful and try to show you this. This gap is enough to neutralize any turbulence coming off the individual fan blades and making the fan, okay, well, in sound, so in noise level, in dB's noise, acceptable. If, however, I mount it like this, there is not enough of a gap that this fan is able to do its job in airflow. And of course, you don't want to push in cold air via a radiator that heats it up into the case. That's not the point of cooling. The point of cooling is getting as much heat out of it. So, this with this, without, and let me remove the screws very quickly, without something like a spacer that I created from a broken fan, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Now, to be honest, and let's reorganize everything. Now, if I use this radiator block with the fan directly attached like this, so it's sucking it through, or the other way around, however you want to, basically not in a push configuration but in a pull, it gets nice temperatures, and that's good. The temperatures, this cooling block works. It's not as good as my Silverstone though. My Silverstone NT06 Pro. The heat dissipation from that direct cooling, so that's non-liquid, is very, very strong. And I didn't feel that heat coming off this radiator. It's though very stable in temperature. That's of course because of the cooling loop. Heat gets dissipated from the CPU into the water, then cycles here, then there's a built-in reservoir, and then colder water gets returned to the CPU for, you know, heating it up again. So it's a cycle. And the radiator pump, well, the pump is included in the block. And I'll give you a little overview so you get an idea of how I envisioned using this setup. Here you can see it. It's a very clean case, so airflow going through the system should have worked very nicely, perhaps with some augmented cool air from these two, because I flipped them around. Normally they are exits, but I flipped them around to get cool air into the case so it can go through the radiator and then exit here with, of course, this one, which doesn't work flat on the case. So, to conclude, I'm very impressed by this €55 Cooler Master Seidon 120M liquid CPU cooling, all in one kit. It's very impressive. Could it do better? For my CPU, which is of course an AMD FX 8350. Whoa, can you see that? There it goes, 8350. Yeah, I could do better. In retrospect, I think I could have gotten away with a thicker radiator. Would have measured it though, because the space here is not all that big, and there are a couple of protruding tie wrap cable points.